What's going on, everybody? Back here with another simulation. This one is only for the freshmen for the 2020 Miami Hurricanes and Florida Gators, and I'll tell you why I'm doing this game in a second. But first, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It's a huge help, and also you get plenty of information on the Miami Hurricanes and more simulations like this. So the reason why I'm doing this freshman game is because it takes a look back on the history of these programs. So starting in 1939, these two teams would face each other with just their freshman teams, and they would play a full season for just their freshmen up until 1972, which was the first year that the NCAA allowed freshmen to play on the varsity teams. So back then, and looking at both programs, their official names for their freshman team was the Baby Hurricanes and the Baby Gators, based on the research I found looking at media guides and all kinds of stuff. So I thought it'd be good to do this freshman game, and we'll see how it goes. We're only going 5-minute quarters, but what's really interesting about these freshmen on both teams is there's a lot of talent and a lot of guys to watch for the future. Starting right here with Jalen Knight, number 4. You got Don Chaney Jr. and quarterback Tyler Van Dyke. I know many of you are excited about the future for Tyler, and what I'm going to do also, so in the third quarter, I've got an interview with offensive coordinator Rhett Lashley talking about Tyler Van Dyke. And then in the second quarter, Manny Diaz is going to give a full scope on the entire freshman class. So I thought that'd be good for you guys to get an interview, incorporate some interviews while we watch this game. So once again, kind of just looking at that freshman team, they used to play about 5 games this season. You know, Miami would play Florida, Florida State, and other teams close to them in the region. And I found it very interesting. And one of the guys who really excelled was, you know, you end up being a Hall of Famer, but Chuck Foreman was one of their top guys on their freshman team. Essentially, it was right before the switch in 1972. So he went on to have a Hall of Fame career and had, he was one of the top freshmen of all time on these teams. So found that to be interesting. And also, so Van Dyke goes down right there. That's a tough play. But the other thing that's interesting about freshmen in the University of Miami, and everyone knows about all the success guys, in recent years have had as freshmen. But Miami's first team, the Miami Hurricanes' first football team in 1926, was actually an all-freshman team before they ended up making the switch to include all classes. So I found that to be interesting as well. So here we go. 3rd and long for Miami here. And I definitely want to talk about some of these freshmen because a lot of you guys have been interested in knowing how they've been developing throughout the year. So there's a nice catch over the middle there. That's number 88, Keyshawn Smith. Keyshawn is one of 4 freshmen wide receivers on the team. And actually, if I were to pick one of the 4 who I think is going to be either the best or have the best future, to me right now, I give the edge to Keyshawn. And when you start hearing about Keyshawn and some of the things he brings to the table, and Manny's going to talk about it a little bit later, but Keyshawn's speed is really standing out, and I expect him to go ahead and get some opportunities. Although if you guys are wanting to see more of Keyshawn, it was probably a little disappointing seeing the workload he got against Pittsburgh, over 30 snaps in the game, and then the next game against Virginia only had 3. So, if I were to guess, I would assume that's going to be pretty par for the course moving forward, where sometimes he gets more snaps and other times he doesn't. So it's just going to be a wait and see in the second half of the season. But I do think that there's potential there. I do think he's a guy to watch for in the future. I think he's going to continue to develop, and I'd like to see him to get some more opportunities, more consistent opportunities moving forward. I think he's a guy that's going to improve his size and things like that as well. So there's number 7, another wide receiver. That's Xavier Restrepo. You're seeing him more and more involved in the return game at punt returner, takes over the duties there. He's a slot receiver playing behind some guys. He's noted for, just having a really good understanding of how to play the game and those kind of understands it. Basically, to me, he strikes me as a guy that really understands his role, what kind of receiver he is. There in the slot. It's another catch by Keyshawn, number 88, so that's good. Van Dyke's off to a good start, completed his first 5 passes. Taking a look at 64, Jalen Rivers, one of the top freshman offensive linemen. Look for him. I think that's going to be very interesting in the second half of the year. I would not be surprised to see Jalen on that top unit at some point in the season. And the one thing that offensive line coach Garen Justice said about Jalen was, once he gets in there, they see him as a guy that won't give that up until he graduates. They really feel like he's going to be a mainstay in that top group, so just look for that, and also look to see how he plays, because you definitely want guys that can solidify a position. And they've been actually using him they've been kind of going back and forth since Jalen arrived in January. He's been going back and forth between guard and tackle. He's kind of gotten positive reviews at both spots, so it gives him versatility to use him at either spot. And so we'll see how that goes. So Jalen Knighton, we're kind of bouncing around here, but Jalen Knighton, I think he's a guy that could also be used more. He's been involved. It just feels like I felt like he's due for a big run, break one out. It's going to be tough competition in the second half, but I still think Jalen will be involved. And Don Chaney Jr., you saw flashes from him. Doing very good with his downhill running. Both guys are picking up positive yards.
3 yards on that last carry.
So we'll see. So once again, I'm going to go to Manny Diaz to talk about the freshman class as a whole, not just the offense, but the defense as well, as soon as we start the second quarter. So stay tuned for that. And then once again, Rhett Lashley in the third quarter to talk about Tyler Van Dyke, things he likes and things he's noticing from him in practices. And shout out to the Florida fans who want to check out their team. And what's interesting is both teams got about 25, 30 players in their freshman class, and that includes walk-ons. But certainly you'll see guys play both sides of the ball. Go ahead and drop in the comments maybe some freshmen that you're really excited about for the future. Whether it's Miami or Florida. Definitely curious what you think about some of these guys. Isaiah Walker, I saw a glimpse of him there. Number 54. He's already been at Florida. He signed with Florida in the spring, and then he transferred to Miami. So very interesting connection with Isaiah. But here's head coach Manny Diaz.
So we'll just start on offense. I mean, certainly offensive line, I'd say Jalen Rivers. Jalen actually got a couple snaps in our heavy package on Saturday, but we're really excited about Jalen's development as a tackle, which is pretty unique for a guy his size. So I would say he's flashing. Certainly, I think the wide receivers have all gotten into games, and they've shown their potential, and I think they'll continue to develop and improve. But we really like the group of young wideouts that we have, and obviously the running backs everybody's had a chance to see. Dom Mammarelli played a lot in the game with Brevin being absent. Dom was outstanding on special teams on Saturday as well. So, and then Tyler Van Dyke, we're very excited to watch Tyler every week in practice. He's getting better and better, and I think he's got everybody on the inside of the program pretty excited about him. Defensively, I really feel the same way. Obviously you've seen Brian Balaam get into some games. Isaiah Dunston's been able to get into some games. Jalen Harrell, got pushed into duty this past Saturday and went out there and for what he was asked to do, ran around, made some good tackles. The linebackers, everybody's seen flag, but Tyreek Austin Cave, when he and Avery Huff, can just get the assignments down, their athleticism is, I think, what we've been, wanting to get at linebacker, and I think those guys will improve us once they know what they're doing. And then up front, whether it's Elijah Roberts, Quentin Williams, Chance Williams, all of those guys flash for us in practice. So I've kind of said over and over again, but and I almost feel like I'm listing about all of them, but it's a talented class. Isaiah Walker has come in and done some things, and really shown his skill set, which is exciting. Helping us out as with our scout team guys. So really, I think the entire class, we would recruit them all again if given the opportunity.
So there's Coach Diaz. Great to hear from him in terms of both sides of the ball. And right now, Miami is looking to take the early lead with the score here. So 1st and goal from the 5. They go handoff to Don Chaney Jr. Goes right up the middle, and that's exactly what you saw recently in a game with Chaney. I'm talking about him a little bit in the running game. I think people should be excited about both running backs. And it'll be interesting to see if one emerges or if they pass Cameron Harris. I know Cam would like more opportunities, so we'll just see how the second half goes with all three running backs. So now Knight with the carry. There's a flag on the play. So it looks like we got a personal foul. Oh, it's a holding. It's hard seeing the referee from the back there, but so Don Chaney Jr. playing a little fullback here. And once again, guys are going to play both sides of the ball throughout the game. In case you see some numbers and things like that, in case you're wondering why that happens there. Not real deep. But that's the way it goes here. So ball on the 13. So the play action pass there, right over the middle. Oh my goodness. Tyler Van Dyke throws a touchdown pass to Keyshawn Smith. Look for that in the future. Great to see for these two freshmen hooking up. It will be very interesting to see how long it's going to take before that connection throws a touchdown in a real game. But certainly there's reasons to be excited about both players. Keyshawn makes a nice play. So Keyshawn is one of 4 wide receivers. I talked about his speed. He's a guy that could also be looked at in the return game. But he looks like he's going to try to go ahead and emerge. And he's one of 4 wide receivers. I mentioned Restrepo is the other one. Michael Redding the third. I think Michael's, what strikes me about him is he's a guy that has a chance to be that physical receiver. I think he's embracing that. I think he's a guy that will continue to get better. I think that's important because they don't have a lot of bigger receivers on the roster. And I think you always need to have guys that can bring different skill sets to an offense. And I think with Redding continuing to develop in that sense, will continue to get stronger and bigger. I think that will be good for him. And I think he's another guy to watch for in the second half because you saw flashes. He was getting some playing time. He's kind of dealt with some injuries in the first half of the year and in fall camp. But I think Redding is certainly a guy that can be in the mix. He's got some good skills. He's already caught a touchdown pass this season. I think he's just another guy to watch for. That's Finley Graham right there, cornerback for Florida. Back to receive the kickoff here. And then the 4th receiver for Miami is Diaz Worsham. And wide receivers coach Rob Likens admitted that it doesn't look like Diaz will get in the mix this year. There's so many guys ahead of him on the depth chart. But he does like his abilities, some of the things he's showing in practice. So definitely keep your eye on Diaz, either in this game and just continuing to develop as a player. So with Florida, their quarterback situation with the freshman with Anthony Richardson here, he's got really good size. And he's a guy that's, highly regarded and developing. The one thing that strikes me about Florida's freshman class is that they had the 2 wide receivers, and then they didn't bring any running backs. So I'm flipping some defensive backs to the running back position in case you're wondering there. And that's one of the receivers for Florida. That's number 3. That's Xavier Henderson. And you guys remember him from Columbus High School. Miami was certainly recruiting him heavily, but he went ahead and picked the Gators. And he's a guy that I enjoyed watching in high school, and I think he's got a bright future as well. So that would be an interesting matchup to see how Miami's corners with Isaiah Dunson and Marcus Clark match up against him. And the thing also about this game, I included number 31, Avonte Williams, a safety who's out for the season with an injury. You see him right there, but you'll see him here in the game. And I think he's a guy that people have almost forgotten about because he's not participating in games, and it's understandably so, but he's certainly a guy to watch for in the future at that position. And that's the thing about Miami's freshman class is they brought in a lot of safeties. You got Keyshawn Washington, number 25, Jalen Harrell, number 20. You see Brian Ballum right there, number 27. And Ballum has actually been the one at this point who's gotten the most playing time amongst the freshman safeties. And then I mentioned Clark and Dunson at corner. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the safeties develop moving forward. And the one thing that defensive coordinator Blake Baker said about Jalen Harrell is, yes, he's playing safety right now, but don't be surprised to see if he makes that move to striker. And I wouldn't be surprised to see it either because he's got good size at safety. They tend to, and Baker admitted, it's kind of what happened at Louisiana Tech before he arrived. He said it tends to be the safeties that kind of emerge into that striker role. So definitely a fast first half here with only the 5-minute quarters, but only a minute left before halftime. Once again, third quarters. Stay tuned. Rhett Lashley will be in to talk about Tyler Van Dyke. And with the safety position, I think that will be interesting. But Jalen Harrell, again, the striker position, a safety. But the reason why, too, is because he can tackle. He's got good size. And also, he's a guy that played a little cornerback in high school, so he does have some cover skills there. Which, while it's not expected, it's definitely important to have that at that striker position as well as the other skills. So kind of just keep your eye on Jalen moving forward. And also, you just figure with so many safeties in the class, you figure somebody's going to move around and figure out something, and to me that's one. Nice pass break up by 31 there. That's Avante. Had to give him the visor. And I wanted to mix up these uniforms. Obviously Miami's wore the Miami Knights uniforms, but they've not mixed it with the white helmets, white pants, but I thought that would be a good look there. And then sometimes Florida does wear the orange pants with the white jerseys. So just kind of mixing things up a little bit with these programs.
Now here's the signal caller getting ready to
Tyler Van Dyke off to a good start.
He's played a pretty clean first half, a touchdown. No
Obviously that completion percent is great. And the 80 yards and that nice touchdown pass to Keyshawn Smith giving Miami this early lead. And also drop in the comments if these two teams were to face each other in the freshman game like they used to do. How do you think they'd match up? Like I said, with Miami, that running back advantage, they certainly have more offensive weapons to go to with the 2 running backs and the 4 receivers and tight end Dominic Mammarelli. So I think that would be an advantage. Although Florida has talented guys on defense who played offense in high school who could certainly help out on the offensive side of the ball there. So I think it'd be definitely an interesting matchup. And when reading about this game, I enjoy reading about history and learning more about stuff. It's a nice move, couple of nice moves by Jalen, but when you hear about this freshman game, you could see how even in today's world, even though the guys can play on the varsity team there, you could see how I feel like it would be an interesting game if they could even play a couple times a year, just the freshmen. So just kind of thinking about the possibilities, seemed like it'd be a lot of intrigue with that game for sure.
That's a staple of this offense. Drag route to the tight end.
So definitely glad you guys are stopping in here and watching this game. And like I said, definitely want to get to Coach Lashley a little bit later here.
Able to get 7 on that first down.
It looks like Miami's got a chance here with 10 seconds left. They're moving.
Now a timeout signaled for.
Calling timeout.
10 seconds to go before halftime.
Right before halftime here. It's been a good first half. So we're going with a long field goal. This is Sebastian. He's a walk-on kicker.
This will be kicked from the 42. It's a
52-yarder. Oh, and he drills it. Sebastian drills a 52-yarder in the freshman game. Great to see Miami's got kickers contributing in the freshman class. So that's definitely good to see. Shout out to all the walk-ons out there putting in the hard work. So plenty of other guys to talk about here. I see number 11, Corey Flagg Jr., a linebacker. A lot of people are excited about him because of the things he's shown in games recently. Defensive coaches have all praised him for his abilities. One thing that they're saying about him is he just does a really good job of playing the game, hard work, has a good mindset towards the game. He's doing well with his fits at linebacker, and he's in that rotation in the top group with the 4 guys. They're kind of rotating in right now. So definitely keep your eye on number 11, Corey Flagg Jr. in the second half because he's showing flashes. You see him right here leading the pack. We got 1 second before halftime, but He's a guy that wasn't highly regarded coming in, but he did come from a really good program at North Shore in Texas. Played in a lot of big-time games, won a lot of games. And the one thing that stands out to me, not just with guys that come from programs like that, is, and I've talked about this in the past, but the competition, even at your position for playing time at those schools, is very high. You've got to play very well and emerge from the pack, because there are other guys they could go with. So your development and getting used to competing for playing time is important, because once you get to college, that's what it's all about. And I think some of those guys have those traits, rather than at some schools, you're often the most talented guy, and you usually are in that lead role, a starting role, for more than one season, and there's not a lot of competition, position competition, for you to emerge from. And I find that to be interesting, because it's not always talked about, because you're always talking about sometimes the big schools, you face good competition, and certainly that is key, because you are facing better players, and that's something you'll face in college too, so you definitely like that as well. I just kind of take the other perspective of also, in addition to that importance, but the importance of competing with your own team and for playing time and getting used to all those things that takes, and I think that's important. I think that's helping Corey work towards more playing time. And then the other freshman linebackers, Tyreek Austin Cave, and you're kind of hearing about him a little bit more each week. And he's a guy that they've actually given a little bit of a look at the striker position as well, as an outside linebacker, basically just trying to figure out where they want to play him. Either in the base defense, if he's going to be one of those two primary linebackers moving forward, or if he can slide over to striker. So we'll just kind of see how his development goes. Other guys on defense, haven't even talked about the defensive line. There's a lot to pay attention to at the defensive line. Chance Williams, number 33, was one of their most highly regarded freshmen in the class. You're seeing some flashes with him, a little bit of playing time this year. He was a guy that was here in the spring, so he's a guy to just always keep an eye on with his future, and also defensive line. And guys are moving around. You see 99, Elijah Roberts, Quentin Williams as well. And I think the biggest thing that you'll watch for with those defensive linemen is kind of where they'll settle in at, whether it's going to be end or tackle. Elijah Roberts played a lot of end in high school, but he's already has good size to play inside. So you're looking at defensive tackle, how he'll do there. Nice play by Corey Flagg. Show that burst to the outside, finish off a play. So you like to see that there.
This offense in desperate need of a conversion.
So Florida's struggling a little bit, but I've talked about their offensive weapons. But certainly Richardson's a guy to watch for as well.
He's able to get it to the 33, good enough for a first down.
That's one of their defensive backs. That's Torrance right there, Rashad Torrance. So doing what he can to help out the offense. Nice tackle from Miami there. That's Keyshawn Washington. He's going to be a guy to get, again, he's a guy that could move around a little bit, where he can play safety, the way they used him in high school at South Dade, where he can play on the box a little bit, maybe in that striker position. And depending on the size he grows into, and he has played cornerback in high school, has good length, but it just depends how they want to use him, if they want to keep him on the safety position, or if they eventually at some point give him a look at corner because of his size. So it'll just be interesting to see how Keyshawn does. But I think the thing that strikes me about Keyshawn, he's a guy that really plays the game hard. I watched him play almost every game his last 2 seasons at South Dade, and works hard, those kind of things. And what struck me on his arrival to Miami is he added weight and got stronger, and I thought that was good. And he had the shoulder surgeries in high school, and it was good to see him quickly improve his strength before he even started his freshman year. So I thought that was a good sign for him. So here we go, 3rd and 10, 3rd and long. Definitely want to shut this off here.
Looking to throw. Richardson.
And I think what strikes me about this class, and I touched on at the beginning, was with Miami's class, is they've got a lot of guys at different positions. Yes, they've got the 2 running backs or 4 receivers, so there's some overloaded positions, but they do have offensive linemen, defensive linemen, linebackers, secondary guys, a quarterback. So they've got a balanced class in terms of numbers, and I find that to always be important. And if I were to, build a class, or my opinion on that is that's the way to go, because so much can happen in terms of development or injuries at a position. And I think it's important to, if you stack your classes like that, eventually you're going to have guys emerge, is the hope, as opposed to, I think teams can really get themselves in trouble when you're not adding pieces in, and then if something happens and all of a sudden you don't have depth at the position, and coaches seem to really harp on that in a season if they don't have the depth, just because it really hurts them in terms of play on the field and games, substitutions, even practices. You're not able to practice the way you'd like because you just don't have enough bodies. And I think it's very important for guys, for coaching staffs, to get that well-rounded, a balanced class. You're trying to get the best guys at each position. And certainly it's a little bit more difficult with doing that with the amount of signees you get, but I think it's certainly should be the target.
And the blitz does come. And that'll be incomplete.
So Torrance unable to come out with the pass. It's Brian Ballum again on the coverage there, so that's good. So it's a 4th down. Miami's going to get the ball back, and then you're going to get that interview with Coach Lashley as he talks about Tyler Van Dyke, as we've not really gotten a chance to see him play. Oh, so they are going to go for it on 4th down. Okay. So here we go. Oh, no, it is a punt. A little tricky there, but yeah, they are going to punt the ball here. And we'll talk more about the defensive players and things like that. But here's Coach Rhett Lashley.
Yeah, Tyler's coming along nicely. He's a guy that, I think it was a week or 2 ago, one of y'all asked maybe about him. I feel really good about where he's progressing as a true freshman. It's weird in season, you got your starter, you're not really having competitions at other places. And so I feel, as do our coaching staff, I think, feel good that, both Nkosi and Tyler would give us an opportunity to win if they were called upon. So that's a nice situation to be in, where you don't feel like you've only got one guy or maybe 2. Nkosi's played a lot of ball, and even though Tyler hadn't really done it because he's a true freshman, and I'm sure there would be growing pains, he's very mature for a freshman. He handles himself and prepares very well, and I think he's gotten better throughout the course of the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season, which a lot of times kids hit that freshman ball. So I think even though y'all don't get to see him and nobody does, he's still progressing very nicely.
So that's offensive coordinator Rhett Lashley. I think that's good to hear from him in terms of his thoughts on how Tyler's developing. We're seeing a good performance in this game. One of striking me here is he's really doing a good job of getting the ball out, even on short patterns. So that's actually a completion for Restrepo with the fumble that goes out of bounds, so Miami will continue with the ball. But kind of going back to building classes, and one thing that stands out to me in terms of that is, if you guys remember, if you guys have been following the Hurricanes for a long time, you remember with Larry Coker, the end of his tenure at Miami, one of the things that kind of happened during that time was the struggles on offense got to be too much, and they just weren't able to win enough games. And obviously there was a lot of attention on Kyle Wright, the starting quarterback at the time. He didn't develop into the guy that you expected him to be as a 5-star quarterback. But also during that time, during those recruiting classes, if you go back and look at those classes, there were times they did not bring in an offensive skill player at all in their class. And I think that's eventually what hurt them. And in some classes it was very minimal. They just didn't bring in enough offensive talent to help Kyle. And there were certainly, obviously, things that Kyle didn't do well during that time, but I think he certainly wasn't helped, in addition to the coordinator changes and all that stuff. But once again, about building classes, you just don't want to have those holes with your class, and I think especially on the offensive side of the ball, because the impact that they can make and that they're expected to make. So flipping it back to the defense, you see Avante Williams, number 31. If you guys didn't remember, news came out right before the start of fall camp that Avante was going to miss the season with an injury, working to get healthy. We've not gotten a lot of feedback on how he's done, but Coach did mention that he is able to see what the team is doing and things like that. So, and Coach Diaz does expect him to be integrated with the team after the season, and that it's not a career-ending injury. I don't know if that's been rumored, but he really put that to bed and said no, they'd expect him to be able to play. It's just an injury that they're taking care of now. So that's good to see. And also, too, with Avante, one of the coaches, and I think it was Coach Baker, but just said he's getting stronger. Also an important part during this time when you're not playing. So a guy that was very highly regarded. He was Miami's top-rated freshman in this class in 2020 recruiting class, according to 24/7 Sports composite rankings. So there's certainly a lot of attention with Avante. Hard-hitting, a guy that has a lot of athletic ability, but a guy that can cover as well. He doesn't have the great size that you've seen at the safety position at Miami in recent years, but maybe in a similar mold, closer to a size of Jaquan Johnson, who had a very productive career at Miami. So if you're looking for a comparison, but he has that athletic ability, so certainly reasons to be excited about Avante when he does step foot on the field.
13 yards to pick up there.
So Richardson deciding to go to the ground here. The game's flying by. Miami with that 10-0 lead. If you're just jumping in, if you forgot what happened in the beginning, but basically Tyler Van Dyke got off to a really good start. Completed a touchdown pass to Keyshawn Smith for the early 7-0 lead, and then Sebastian the walk-on with the 52-yard field goal. So good to see there. So that's why Miami's up 10-0. Florida's struggling to move the ball a little bit on Miami's defense. Doesn't have the offensive firepower that you're looking for. But like I said, they do have a good one in Henderson on the outside. Richardson's got a chance to be a good one at quarterback with a good size as well, with his passing and running ability. And I think we've touched on a lot of guys, and some of the guys that you guys maybe recognize a guy, maybe it's a walk-on, one of the walk-on offensive linemen, but definitely all of these guys are freshmen on both sides of the ball.
To throw is Richardson, throwing on first down. It's a short one here, complete to the tight end. One thing I think that's safe to say defensively.
There's Odom. Odom's a guy that was highly regarded out of high school, a tight end for Florida, so gets a catch there. But definitely appreciate everybody for watching. If you guys are still here, I'm glad you guys checked out the interviews from Manny Diaz and Rhett Lashley as we talked about some of these freshmen moving forward. So it's a nice interception right there. And that's number 20. That's Jalen Harrell. We talked a lot about him earlier, and he flexes to celebrate right there on the Florida sideline. I wonder how that would go over. But certainly Jalen's a guy to watch for. Steps right in front there. And I was wondering, they got the safeties. Keyshawn's in there. I wonder if Jalen was playing a cornerback position. Like I said, versatile player, athletic with good size. He goes ahead. He's a guy that's played on a state championship team as a senior. And I think he's a guy that can continue to watch for. And I think a lot of the defensive guys, watch for these guys on special teams. That's so important for young players in Miami's system to earn playing time on the base defense or offense, but particularly on defense. Just do well on special teams can really earn yourself an opportunity, earn yourself a role, get in that rotation. So I think that will be something to watch for. If you start seeing some guys make some really good solo tackles in on punt coverage, but particularly on kickoffs, it's just a really good opportunity for them to do that. Or if they're able to spring a block on a big run, something to catch the coach's eye. And I saw 72 right there. That's offensive tackle Chris Washington, good size at 6'7", 300 pounds. He's really improved his weight. He's gotten bigger since he's arrived in the spring. And he's going to be someone to watch for too.
intercepted. Maybe the turning point they
Not sure what Van Dyke was looking for right there, but right over the middle. And that's Derek Wingo. Remember him, a linebacker from St. Thomas Aquinas. It could be costly as Florida if they can get a quick score, and they've got their timeouts. And Van Dyke just looks like he just misread or miscommunication on the routes there.
We've got a good cushion. We can keep pressing it. It ended up costing them.
So Florida's set to take the ball again, and I think if you're looking at, once again with Miami's freshman class, and the thing moving forward is you talk so much about the secondary and the reason is because they've got a lot of upperclassmen at safety and at corner. Starting corners with Blades and Ivy, both are juniors. And just a reminder, this year doesn't count towards eligibility for any player. But certainly those guys have played a lot, and you want guys to develop behind them. The cornerback certainly has a lack of depth at this time. And the safety position, once again, Bubba Bolden is a junior, but he's in his 4th year of college, so he's a guy that might look to move on. He's having a good year. And then Amari Carter's a 4th-year senior, and then Gervin Hall's a 3rd-year junior. So once again, guys that are playing the most are upperclassmen, and they will eventually need to be replaced. So that's why you want the secondary right now to really develop and be ready to step in, because you don't want to have a weakness or a drop-off at that position. Keyshawn Washington with a nice tackle there. So 2nd and 4, ball in the 6. And Frazier's is another guy. That's the other receiver in Florida's class that we'll be looking for, and he's wearing the number 0 jersey here.
From the shotgun now, here's an inside give. Trying to run inside, but nothing there.
That's a nice tackle there. So flag leading these guys. All the names that you guys know. We talked about all these guys. I don't think I missed out on anybody. But here we go. 3rd and goal, or 3rd and 4 from the 6.
Now Richardson from the gun on 3rd down.
It's a good coverage. Nice pass break up there. I think that was Jalen Harrell once again, but now we got 4th and 4, and if you're Florida, you got to go ahead and take the field goal, I would assume. Oh, that's a nice diving play right there. That's actually number 28. That's Marcus Clark. I thought it was 20 with Jalen Harrell, but yeah, Marcus Clark, a cornerback. That's still developing. Dunson's ahead of him right now in terms of playing time and who the coaches talk about more. But Clark, once again, they'll look to develop him because they need cornerbacks to develop. And also talking about the secondary, talk so much about special teams, but the other thing that both coaches talk about, and defensive coordinator, but safeties coach Ephraim Banda, cornerbacks coach Mike Rump, all the coaches on Miami's defensive side of the ball, they really talk about the importance of tackling, particularly at the secondary, because you think about guys in the secondary obviously covering and things like that, but they really want their defensive backs to tackle. And so in addition to doing well on special teams, if they get opportunities to be on the defense, they really got to tackle well and make plays there. So Jalen Knight, we're going through a bunch of guys, but in terms of the impact freshmen on this year's team, it is Jalen Knight and Don Chaney Jr. They've played the most. They are in the rotation. They're impacting the team, both scoring touchdowns and picking up yards, and didn't talk about them nearly enough. Different running backs. They seem to both have a good understanding that they're okay with splitting playing time. They feel like they're getting opportunities. It kind of about right now they're looking at 7 to 10 carries a game or touches a game when things are going well. So that's kind of the roles that they're in. Certainly it's enough to be productive. Keyshawn Smith with another catch, having a really good day. And obviously, if this freshman game happened, while it's great to see Van Dyke throwing the ball around, certainly you would give the ball to the running backs a lot more. So, but yeah, once again, I expect more from Jalen. Even though he's done well and shown flashes, I think he's got bigger runs ahead of him. I think he's going to be involved in the passing game. I think he can make guys miss. You've seen it briefly here. You've seen it briefly in the season in terms of his cutting ability. He accelerates really well, gets to top speed at a high rate. And I know the offense is looking for playmakers, and I think Jalen's a guy that you see one right there. He just has the ability to pick up yards. That was a big run right there. That's 3rd and 5. So they're obviously looking to run out the clock there, and that's Florida's with the 1 timeout left. So that's going to do it. They'll call timeout here, but that was the first down they needed. So Jalen Knighton on 3rd down gets that key first down, and we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. And then Don Chaney Jr., don't want to forget about him, because I know a lot of people are excited about him, and it's kind of a preference, right? Because both guys have different running styles, but obviously both guys really highly productive. But with Don, you're seeing a lot of the between the tackles stuff, downhill running, a lot of positive yards. You're seeing him go forward a lot on his runs. I think that's so important with running backs. You start to evaluate how they're doing. Look for the running backs that, even when things don't go well, that they avoid those negative runs. Running backs have the good ones tend to stay away from those big time negative runs, and they're a way to, even if they get a yard or two when things don't look good. But certainly what you like about running backs is that big playability. Both players have it. Both players have shown it. I think they'll both continue to be key guys in the offense moving forward this season, and certainly for their futures.
Maybe in your world, a little bit of a work.
So Miami obviously in 4th down. I do not know why. I don't know why they're punting there. They had the time on the clock. But either way, they go ahead and snap the ball. You get one last tackle, one last play. Gives Florida a chance, but it didn't work out. So Miami, the Baby Hurricanes, yes, that's the official name, but Baby Hurricanes get that 10-3 win over the Baby Gators. Great to see the talent on both sides of the ball. Talk about these guys. Hear from the coaches on their thoughts on how guys are developing here. And certainly was interesting to watch, and certainly both teams will need to implement these freshmen moving forward into their programs. Let's look at some of the bigger plays there. The couple of cuts by Jalen Knight and a tackle by Derek Wingo. Good to see Richardson making a catch on the sideline was Frazier's. And Van Dyke with a really good game, has a touchdown to Keyshawn Smith. I was curious who you thought, maybe on the receivers, if you guys want to drop in the comments, which receiver are you most excited about? Definitely like seeing your guys' comments. And the way it shook out, the passing yards, rushing yards, everything looked to be pretty equal. Really close, very interesting. So Miami goes ahead and gets the touchdown, gets the win. Just want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. It's a huge help. Be sure to check out InsideTheU.com for all your coverage of the Miami Hurricanes, the freshmen, recruiting, everything. And you can follow me on Twitter at InsideTheU. Thanks again, and take care.